Hi, a very good evening to you. Slightly different from the morning show, but my name is still David Batsoffen. I'm still with Travel and Things. I'm still in conversation with, except this evening I find myself in conversation with, well, you may know him as a comedian, but he's pivoted, and now he is just John Vlismas. How are you doing, John?
Hello, sir. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. I do like the chair, John.
Oh, thanks. It was a gift from my family on my birthday because I spend all my time in my chair now.
Does that have sort of straps and hats and things that you can
It's
push
got a
and
good
fiddle
neck
with?
rest and a good back support and things.
Which is it's always important.
Yeah, especially when you're spending 16 hours a day working. It's crazy.
Have you found, just talking of that, have you found that with this lockdown, you're actually working more than you did before?
Yeah. Weirdly, I thought I would have nothing to do, and it turns out that I have a lot to do. So I get into this chair at about 5:30 every morning, and I will
Right.
be here tonight after we finish, probably until about 11.
Okay. It is amazing because I thought, much like you, being a non-traveling travel writer, that I'd have nothing to do now. And it turns out that now I have more to do because now I've got to produce content without actually having to travel. So it's made me
Yeah,
work smarter than work harder, but it has kept me in this particular chair for at least 8 or 9 hours a day.
yeah, it's crazy. It's like I was saying to someone the other day, this chaos for the world is like spring for the mad people.
Let's take a step back. People know you as a comedian. Um,
Yep,
what happened to make you change direction? Because you changed before the madness happened.
I did because my change is not based on this chaos. My change was based on probably something I've been thinking about for a while, but when my dad died, that was kind of my moment. The moment my dad died, in fact, I remember exactly the moment he died, and I made a decision at that moment. I made a joke as he died, and then I was like, okay, so I think I'm done with this, and yeah, and then I subconsciously, I suppose, I'd been laying some new ground in my life, and I just followed that.
But did the death of your dad not beget one last stage show?
Yeah. So I knew that I would probably do one show about my dad because when I made the joke as my dad died, I didn't understand it. I understood the joke. I didn't understand why I felt the need to do that. And a friend of mine said, well, don't you understand that your irreverence is your highest form of reverence? And that's exactly what it was. It was like it was the best thing I could do for my dad. And so I made a decision that I would say goodbye to him in my best way. And that was to write one last show and see if I could make the saddest thing I've ever been through something funny. And I think it was one of my funniest shows, actually. And I was on a mission. I mean, it was traumatic to write the show. It was really hard because I couldn't find the funniness of it. And then I remember I ended up on my own. I took my daughter and her friends for her, I think it was her 18th birthday. My gift to her was to let her and 3 friends go to a music festival outside Clarence for the weekend. But being a kind of a dad who's been through the mill, I decided I would go to Clarence myself, and then I would work on my show while they were
Right.
at the festival, so that if anything went wrong, I could be there. And it was a rainy, freezing, long weekend in Clarence by myself, and I literally went into a room with a fireplace, and I remember some groceries, And I was like, I'm not leaving here until I've written this fucking thing. And that was it. It was a really strange, tough, but beautiful weekend. I remember at the end, when I got the show, I took everything like down in the room, and I put paper on the walls, and I started trying to, like, I didn't have tape, so I used plasters from the first aid kit from the car. And I turned this room. It looked like CSI on acid. And then finally at the end, I decided I would play the show out with My Way from the Sex Pistols in one final. My dad was quite a maverick in his way. I don't think he would have appreciated the Sex Pistols, but between the space between us was probably correct in terms of the era and stuff. And so I remember playing the song loud, and I was just jumping up and down, like, because it was just quite primal, actually, but amazing. And I knew that if I just did this show and got it out of my system, I'd be okay to not do it ever again.
And has that worked out for you?
Yeah, it has. And primarily because we are all taught to find one thing and excel at that, and that defines us. And I think that's bullshit. As my dad died, I realized that he could have lived so many lives. He's a very gifted man, very intelligent, very funny, a great writer, a brilliant chef. He had so many gifts, but he decided to be a dad and a provider and a husband. And he put a lot of his own dreams on hold. I only found out about it much later in my life, but he deferred a lot of his own dreams to provide for us. And I think he worked himself so hard that eventually it killed him. I mean, he stopped working long before he died, yeah. But the things that killed him were the result probably of a lifestyle induced by hard work. So I think the gift was from him was the clarity that I could live more than one life. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to see if I can excel at other things.
I have to share with you, because you talk about your dad and wanting to live many lives. After my dad died about 15 years ago now, I said to my mom, was there anything that Dad wanted to do that he never got to do? And she said, yes, he'd always wanted to be in the circus. He'd wanted to run away to join a circus. And it just so happened that there was a circus in Johannesburg at the time. And I had a chat with the ringmaster. Now, my father was a cleavage man. He would admit it himself. So he had been cremated by that stage, and I had some of his ashes left. And I put them in a small pill bottle, not unlike this one. He's not in this, just as a matter of interest.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, yes, this is one I made earlier. And I found a young lady who was the trapeze act, and she put the pill bottle in her cleavage, did her act, and then signed a certificate afterwards to say that posthumously my father had performed in the circus, which to the best of my knowledge still hangs in my mom's house in Howick.
Amazing. Oh, that's a beautiful story. I love that.
You know, people think it was irreverent or disrespectful. And I said, if you knew my dad, he would have been applauding. I've got news for you.
I think that was the thing that I found with the show, is that exactly to your point, like, what a wonderful way to remember your dad, honor your dad. And, yeah. and people are so serious about death, and they're so like morbid, and they're so like, you know, it's got to be taken so seriously. And I just don't buy that. I think you've got to, you know, it is such a beast. It's such a big thing. It's the point of our existence, right? Is to prepare for our death. And people get so wrapped up in giving it all this power. It's just, we're just apes flying around a nuclear reactor on a piece of rock that had some luck. It doesn't make it, you know, the fact that you can smell a rose or love a child, you know, like, you can look at your daughter or your son and just realize that you've created this person and you have genuine unconditional love for them. You can hear a poem and be moved, or listen to a song. Just the biology of that is so ridiculously miraculous. Of course it's absurd. So why would dying be such a big deal?
Yeah.
I find it strange.
I think the Irish have it right. They throw a wake, they throw a proper party, and yeah. You know, you just don't happen to be there. Or there's a picture of you and you pay for all the drinks, basically.
Yeah, or you're in a box in the lounge and they keep stamping up against you going, oh, you're looking well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Great writers from Ireland.
Sorry, say that again.
Ireland's bred some beautiful writers because I'm a mad absurdist. I'm a devout absurdist. If I had a religion, it would be absurdism. Sam Beckett, great writer.
John, so what are you doing with your? I know that you went through a phase where you painted, and then your mentor went and died on you. Are you still painting?
I haven't painted for a little while, but I should be. I did pick up a year after Robert died or so. Did a couple of exhibitions. I haven't painted for a while. I did a show about 3 years ago. Did well. It was a good show, and I haven't done that. I'd like to get back to it. Actually, it's something I'd like to carry on. But I started studying. I started learning, and it was quite a big deal for me because I was really crap at school, and so to be able to go back to university, to start university at an old age, I'm not old, but much later in life, was a really exciting thing for me, and I'm very glad my dad knew about that. He was alive when I started. In fact, He suggested when I came up, he said, "Well, this is actually, why don't you think about this?" So I did, and I really dug it. And then I got invited to teach at the business school while I was studying, and not only that, but to help develop some material. And I found a new purpose, which was a show's cool, and you can hear people laughing, and maybe later someone will say, "Oh, I love that thing you did," but you can watch new ideas land and form and be born and change, and minds actually, like, it's just an incredible feeling. So I got into that, and then through a strange series of events, while lockdown was busy unfolding in China, I was thinking about what to do with myself. I was going to be a public speaker, and I was preparing I've done some talks, but I was going to get much more involved. And then a chance came up for me to perhaps be the head of marketing at Henley Business School. And I decided to give it a go. And I've been doing that since April. And it's been amazing because that happened. And then at the same time, my production company lost a very big project. But at the same time, we gained a virtual project. So as lockdown kicked in, we went into virtual production almost immediately. So the production company is very busy, and now I'm the head of marketing at Henley, which is something I didn't expect to be.
John Vlismas in a suit?
Not quite. It's just a blazer, not a tie. But it's just cold, actually. I'm sitting here like some kind of weird geography teacher with my tea and my heater and my cats. It used to be sort of cocaine and hookers, and
how the years have changed us, John.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, we've known each other for, I don't know, what, 25 years? 20 years.
At least that, yeah. But just before we go on, the painting on the shelf, on the bookshelf behind you, behind Yoda, is that one of yours?
Yes. No. It's a digital drawing by an artist I love called Sean McMahon. And that is taken from a picture of my daughter when she was very small. He does pop art portraits.
Yeah, I thought it was your daughter. It's so instantly recognizable. It really and truly is.
That little girl is now a psychology student at Stellenbosch.
You kidding? I remember when she was born. That's how scary it is.
Yeah.
Oh my! What can I say?
Your daughter must be. I mean, how old's your daughter now?
35 this year.
Wow. It's crazy.
And also teaching. She's teaching at UCT. Really? She's lecturing at UCT. She went back at 33 to do a master's, finished her master's, and she's now lecturing. I mean, who would have thought?
I mean, well, I hope I've taken a break from my studies. I got to my third stage of the MBA, and I really don't have a lot left. I mean, I've just got to do a couple of assignments and then my thesis, and I just couldn't do it all. You know, John, who's the dean, and a really probably my mentor actually, is one of the most challenging. That's why I think it's good to have the Yoda. John is my Yoda.
Okay.
He's frustrating and challenging and very agile intellectually. So he loves to test you and in the most kind but tough way. And so that's been it's been very challenging, a sharp learning curve, because obviously I had to learn how to be involved in it, not only a corporate environment, but a corporate academic environment. So when I realized what I was taking on at the time, the school managed to pivot completely virtually in 12 days. And it was one of the strangest periods I've ever been through in my life. It was just all mostly sitting not in this chair, because it wasn't my birthday yet. This came on my birthday, but in another chair that was less comfortable. I didn't leave my desk for literally 20 hours a day at certain times. So I put my studies on hold because I just couldn't get to the books after the work, you know. But I'll get back to it. I mean,
I have to say kudos to you, because an MBA is not easy. You literally have to put your entire life on hold. And there's no such thing as public holidays, long weekends, evenings to sleep. It's just a hard grind. It really and truly is.
Yeah, it is. And also there's a bit of an asshole factor to an MBA, actually. When you meet people, they'll tell you all about it, right? But what I've discovered is, and why I'm at peace with I'm not rushing to finish. What I'm at peace with is, even though there's a lot of work and a lot of thinking, and you've got to, there's stuff, but it's a really great process to be involved. And I've realized that learning for me is actually the thrill. It's not of course I want to get the thing, and I really want to graduate with a PhD eventually, only because I want someone who looks like me to go up and get a doctorate. I'm so excited to do that. But it's the process of learning how to learn that I've really liked about it. And I suppose I could have maybe studied other things in another lifetime, but hopefully I'll get to do a few other things.
Have you had any of your teachers from school come to see, before you sort of went into this, or maybe while you were still doing stand-up, come and see your shows and go, wow, we never thought you'd amount to anything, and here you are. We paying to come and see you.
I don't think I ever saw a teacher again. Mark Banks always tells this great story about when he left the school. He walked across the field and he never looked back. And I feel the same. I actually thought school was barbaric and stupid. And I hated every minute of it. And people go, oh, school days are the best days of it. That's bullshit. That's a lie. Probably student days are the best days. I studied drama. That was amazing, because we were doing what we wanted to do all day and all night. And there were no rules. And you were encouraged to be interesting and express your sexuality and yourself and just be as odd as you possibly could. And it was all fine. That was great. School's awful. And if I do see any of those people, I remember the headmaster saying, you'll amount to nothing, when he threw me out. And I was like, well, and then he died. So I won that one. And but I haven't seen any of them.
I have to admit, I went back to my primary school about a year ago, and looking at the picture of my principal on the wall, I could picture him in a gray uniform in a different setting. And I have a sneaking suspicion that they were all sadists. They really were. Because in those days, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they could beat you. They caned us, and they could beat girls as well, and they did. And you sort of wonder why, because it didn't really do anything. It didn't make us better people because we got beaten. All we did is hate him more.
Yeah. Well, there's somewhere in this shelf, there's a brilliant book called Out of Our Minds by a very clever English academic called Sir Ken Robinson. And he was the man who tried to explore why the British education system was so buggered. and he did some very good work, and yeah, he has written a brilliant book about how we still teach children as if they're going into the Industrial Revolution. And to your point, that the schooling system was really designed for people entering the Industrial Revolution, not where we're going now. So it has to change.
I was hoping that the one thing that would have come out of lockdown or out of this whole COVID-19 pandemic was a changing of the school system, so that what they were taught and how they were taught would become totally different. And it would be the opportunity to make it different. Yet, as we well know, they went back to school on Monday, the grade 7s to 12s, and they'll just pick up where they left off, learning about, I don't know how many cows there are in Argentina, or what the square root of COVID-19 actually is. And who really cares?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it has to change. And I don't know if this is the last big virus we're going to face. That's the next thing, which is going to be interesting, is we either are going to change and get it, or we're not. I wrote a thing for my website about how COVID, you could look at COVID as a really effective vaccine against humanity, a chemotherapy, if you will, because humans are replicating at a rate not only of numbers, but also our demands are becoming outrageous. The fact that we are happy to have avocado pears that are basically stealing water from villages in countries where there's no protection, or you have your salmon come hell or high water when it's not really the time for salmon or the place. And what COVID's done is almost like a chemo. It's restricted the movement of us and the replication of us and our productivity, which is what causes the damage. And this planet's getting a fucking chance to breathe just for a moment. And if you think about the number of people that it will kill against the total number of humans on Earth, it will probably be the most effective, because it'll kill the least number of people of all the great kind of pandemics. But it will immobilize great numbers of us because of our communication. The fact that the virus now can use digital communication to slow us down by us spreading information more quickly. It's like an evolution of the virus, and it's an evolution of a system that is trying to find a way to get its biggest predator to be contained. And I mean, it's not, the Earth isn't conscious, but it's a physical system, and combinations will try and find ways to seek equilibrium. It's just a very interesting thing for me.
It is indeed, and there's so many theories around it. And do we know? Don't we know? Will we know? Won't we know? Will certain presidents wake up every morning and tweet rubbish and make the rest of us angry? Who knows? Who knows?
We can always rely on one of them at least to tweet rubbish when he wakes up, right?
Exactly. The others go into hiding. We don't know where they go. They vanish for weeks on end.
Yeah, but there's some amazing. What's interesting is very few amazing leaders make it to the highest office. If you look around the world, you can see a couple. Jacinda Ardern is an amazing leader.
I want her cloned. I want every prime minister and president from here on out to be made of Jacinda DNA, because there is a woman who has dealt with everything, as they say, and with a baby on her knee. No other prime minister or president has ever done that. And she does it with style and with grace and with diplomacy that just makes everybody else in the world say, if only she was ours.
Yeah. So there are the odd ones, but if you look, it's very rare. It's almost like humans don't want energized centrists as leaders. They want these kind of polarized binary twits. It doesn't say much for us.
No, that we voted them in. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But John, between the last show of your dad's and where you find yourself now at Henley, you went through another transformation. You did a series on, was it The Outsiders?
Oh yeah. So that's ongoing.
Is that ongoing?
We just did a great. Yeah. We that's Carmen Murray and I. Became really good friends, and in fact, Carmen's company one of the main kind of suppliers to my marketing department at Henley.
Right.
Carmen, I rely heavily on, consult a lot with Carmen, especially on the digital side, because her data analytics are fantastic. And she said, let's do a podcast. We sat down, we sort of workshopped some ideas over about a half a day, actually. And we came up with this concept that we both feel like outsiders. We've always felt like outsiders, but in different ways. And we postulated this theory that everybody has an outsider inside them. And in fact, I think that's what marketing is at its essence, is that you want to isolate the outsider in someone and then offer them a solution to feel more in. Because psychological research will tell you that the feeling of being abandoned on a human system is almost equivalent to physical pain. So if you look at marketing and product development, it's basically designing panic and then giving you a solution. That's really, if you look at everything on earth, that's pretty much what it is. So if you don't have this car, nobody's going to sleep with you. If you don't have this, no one's going to love you. Then he's going to think you're important. So all these things. So we decided to then interview some interesting people and then approach it from who's your inner outsider. And we've had this incredible response. We spoke to Jonathan Jansen, who's an amazing educator, always been an outsider from the system, but so incredibly brilliant and irreverent at the same time. We spoke to Stafford Massey, who's this interesting tech guy who talks a lot about the fact that being from a mixed race family, it means that his family tree is incredibly small. He doesn't have a history, he says. And so his job is to create a future legacy for his family using technology.
He has a family shrub rather than a family tree.
Yeah, exactly. He talks about the horny rabbi who kicked it all off somewhere in Joburg. So there's that. And we spoke to Faith Popcorn. We got Faith on the line. And,
oh, wow.
We spoke about her past, which is something she says no one's ever asked her. We wanted to know about her past. And it was really, she ended up coming to Joburg to do some work. We ended up having dinner with her, and her and Carmen got on really well. She just did another interview with Karen Zoid. We did Karen Zoid's interview just the other day. That was amazing. Karen's also an outsider.
He definitely is. Afrikaans rock chick of note.
Yeah, absolutely. But the more we do it, the more we realize that everyone is an outsider, and it's an incredible. It's just this incredible idea that why does no one recognize that inside you there's an outsider, and it's okay. It's okay to grow up on the fringe, because you just have to assimilate it properly. I didn't. I did a very bad job of initially. I took enormous amounts of drugs, and I drank too much, and I chased comedy which is essentially looking for approval. Because my early comedy was very much that. It was very much around the audience, what they wanted. And I'm quite ashamed of my early work. I think I really played to the lowest common denominator in many ways. I used a lot of stereotypes. I played to largely white, sort of probably racist, misogynist, conservative audiences. And then over time it evolved. But I think initially probably was just me being needy and giving them what they wanted. But only later then I was like, well, actually, fuck you. I have my own voice, and I'm going to tell you what I want to say. So I think that's a function of the outsider. But now I'm able to try and process that outsiderness and use it for something good.
Did you need, though, much like caterpillars evolve into butterflies, and your colorful tattoos, I suppose it's a good analogy, but did you need to go through that process, that beginning of your comedy, in order to get you where you are today? If you had started where you are, what would you have evolved into?
I might be starting to become a comedian. I don't know, but I do think, yes, everything leads to something. So I'm a big believer in that. I don't regret it. I had a great time. I had a fantastic time. And I'm a super lucky human being. I've done things that I think many people would love to do. And I got to do them again and again and again. And but then what I'm most interested in, because I don't know how I feel about it yet, the last show I did, I had committed to do one last arena show after my dad's show.
Mm.
So I had one last night in Cape Town at the Grand West Arena with 4 really good comedians and Reddy D, the DJ. And I've known him for a long time. I'm a huge fan. He's an amazing, amazing guy, very spiritual dude. And it was a really mixed feeling night. I mean, I thought I'd be cool with it, but it was quite a yeah, I was very emotional, and it was great. I had a good time, but I needed to stop in the middle of feeling good about it. I didn't want to end that part of my life when it started going badly. I wanted to do something really good and then just stop.
Yeah.
And that's been a very interesting shockwave to my system, because if your entire, especially someone who started with low self-esteem, if you've been defined by something that you've done and then suddenly take it away, what's left? And that's what interests me. That's the substance, because that's the thing which you don't automatically walk into a room and people give you a certain, like a score.
Yeah.
You walk in, when I go now into a meeting with the Henley global branding team in a Zoom meeting, I'm the junior, and it's a really interesting shift in the power dynamic.
Right.
But I'm okay with it.
Your outsider is now an insider being outside again.
Yeah, well, we're forming a revolution in Henley, that's for sure. I don't know if you've noticed, but their branding has changed completely, and it's quite cool because we're breaking some records at the moment. We've got more intakes this year than we had last year, and that's in the middle of like a lockdown. So it's unheard of. The digital stuff is working, and we just won another award for the executive coaching work. That's one of the programs that I was teaching on originally just won this really big international. It's not my fault. Not because of me. There's a massive team of really clever people. They slotted me in as one little cog.
Right.
But it's a really beautiful program, and it was designed in collaboration with our biggest competitor. So Gibbs Business School and Henley collaborated on a project.
Okay.
And it's won this global award, and it's amazing when you work with your competitor, what you can achieve.
Well, kudos on that, John. I think that's fantastic. No, if people remember you as a comedian, and obviously your work is relatively recent. It's not like you did it 20 years ago and have changed, in the last 20 years. How do your students react to you when they see you, let's say in a Zoom meeting or online, and they sort of go, no, hang on a second. We saw your show at, how, and now you want to teach us.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. So interestingly, my area of interest, I suppose, is dissonance. That's what I love to teach about. And
right.
I don't just talk about it, I actually instill it. I trigger it or provoke it in people. And what I use is exactly that, prejudice. So I walk in, people think they know what I'm going to do. And then a little way in, I can see the sort of confused looks. And I'm like, you see, I'm not in a box. You are.
Yeah.
When you put me in a box, I'm not in the box. I'm not with you. I'm free. You're in the box. And so we do like a full day of breaking conventions and old programming and starting to learn new things. And it works very well for disruptive teams that have got to come up with disruptive solutions. And, I teach people to not attack other people's beliefs, which is what we do as South Africans particularly. We love to undermine other people. But what we don't do is attack our own beliefs, because we secretly don't believe them. And we think if we attack it too much, it might crumble. So we defend it with irrational levels of emotion and entitlement and all these other weapons of prejudice. And when you get someone to break down those walls and see that it's okay, it's absolutely fine to believe what you believe. Just understand that it doesn't. I don't care about it. It means nothing to me. So it's quite a robust subject, and it's not for the squeamish or the people who are determined to cling to conservatism. But the results we get are amazing.
I should imagine it's very emotional for the participants, because when you get to that particular point where you realize that if you let go, you will be okay. I mean, I'll share with you something that, if you don't mind, that I carry with me.
Yeah.
and I have for probably 20 years. It's by somebody called Guillaume Apollinaire. You may or may not have heard of him. And it goes as follows. It says, "Come to the edge," he said. "We can't, master, we're scared. Come to the edge," he said. "We can't, master, we are scared. Come to the edge," he said. They came, he pushed them, they flew. Freedom is our destiny, yet we fear taking the very step which will carry us into the greatness which is our own true nature. And this is what you seem to be doing, John.
I hope so. I could just be crazy. I don't know. But yeah, I love that piece of writing. And to a point, I don't think I could get here. There's a lot of, you've got to go through quite a lot of hurt. And you've got to go through quite a lot of, there's an element of being hard. I think you've got to make some really hard decisions. I didn't just end my comedy career, I ended a very long relationship. It was, I suddenly realized wasn't good for either of us. That was tough. I walked away from the business I founded in 1997. And we've all been taught that you must be proud of a long-running business, and this is your thing. I've walked away from the Comics Choice Awards. I don't own any part of them anymore. That's not all through my own choice. There was a bit of nonsense there, but even that, I the other day I had to just send a message out just to say goodbye Waldo, which is the name of the statue.
Okay.
And I could never win one. It ran for 9 years because I started them. I could never win one, and you couldn't vote for me. And I put a long time into building those awards. And even when I tweeted goodbye Waldo, I thought it might, stick in my throat. But what I've realized is that it's okay to walk away from things because you don't really. You carry the experience, and you carry the to use that word, the mastery. Like if you work on something really hard, it's not the thing you make, it's the process you've internalized that is the real treasure. And so to work hard on something for a long time is not something anyone can take from you because you've learned how not to do things or how to do things better.
Yeah.
And I don't lose that. So now you become this. I got a friend who's a rabbi, and he said to me, you're like the most free person I know. And that's a real compliment, because I think I'm learning how to let go. To that Guillaume point is take that step, because we're only here for a moment. So why not? And what's the worst that can happen? Well, it was going to happen anyway. You won't be here just now.
This is it. I listening to you speak now. Some years ago, I worked with Peter Dirk Ace, and he asked me about my backstory. And I told him that I was an electrician because my parents wanted me to have a job to fall back on. And he stopped me there. And this was my pivoting point. And he said to me, "Why do you need a job to fall back on? Why can't you have a job that you can fall forward into?" And it was literally that moment that I said, I want to be a travel writer. I want to be a game ranger. That's what I'm going to work towards. It was that exact, because up until that point, everybody said, "Oh, you're an electrician, you'll always have work and you'll always be safe," and that type of thing. But it's not what it was a second choice even when I left school.
Imagine, it's difficult because not everybody gets to choose.
Yeah.
We can teach children that everyone has a choice, but as I get older and I understand the world, many people are robbed of choice. But the crime is if you have the choice and you don't use it. That's I don't accept this kumbaya bullshit that like everyone has a choice. The truth is, if you were born at a certain time in history or a certain place or a certain race or a certain context, you didn't have a choice. And it's really trite, and it's glib, and it's obnoxious to talk, oh, well, everyone has a choice. And I did a video the other day about this saying, beggars can't be choosers. It's horrific. It's a terrible thing to say, because what it's saying is that if you don't have any assets, you're not entitled to have choice. And that is fundamentally inhuman. But if you do have privilege, you don't have to be embarrassed about it, but you better do something with it. You really need to do something with it. And I am very privileged. And I could make that white speech about, oh, I worked hard. Well, fuck, it doesn't matter how hard I worked. I never went down a mine shaft. I never ever came home to a horror and then went back to work to another horror and then home to a horror for generations. So it doesn't matter what I've done work-wise, because I did it in relative security, relative comfort, relative. So that's a stupid argument. But my crime would be, and I don't know if it's a crime. My dad sacrificed so much to give us a life. By the time he got back to what he wanted to do, he was too tired.
Yeah.
His actual dream couldn't sustain the body that he'd put through what he did. And I would be an asshole if I didn't thank my dad by like fucking catapulting while I have the energy into the next adventure, because I do carry in myself a lot of his code biologically. It's not even an esoteric idea. Genuinely, I carry most of his code in me. So that's the closest I can come to what you did, which is you took your dad to be in the circus. So that's a beautiful, I love that story, by the way. I haven't heard it before, and I'm going to keep that. So I think we've got to do that. And isn't it great that you've done it? Don't you feel lighter as a human?
I do. And also, I suppose in a way I have to thank my daughter for some of my pivoting, because of how where she finds herself. She's also taught me to be, I don't want to say a better human being, but a more caring and more thoughtful human being, before I go into the old white judgmental, the sort of elderly white man judgmental phase. I now have learned to stop and think and consider before making a judgment. And who am I to judge? Really and truly, who am I to judge other people? Because their situation maybe have led them to that particular point differently. I see them as one thing, and they may have gone through something else up until that point that I know nothing about. And I can't just say, oh, well, you can't do that, because the instant, I like to call it the anti-social media, who are so quick to be judgmental. You go, I'm looking for a blue marble, and somebody will go, well, why do you want a blue marble? I've got a green one. What's wrong with that? And then it goes off into a space that you never saw coming, and always ends up with somebody saying, oh, well, you're just an asshole because you want a blue marble, and it's because you're an elderly white man, basically. And then you go, really, did I need that? Do I believe it anymore? No.
Well, but I've always thought that you had a really cool approach to how you navigate the world, David. I've always found that it's been so cool to hang out. And it's amazing that you learn from your daughter, because I always feel like that's how I judge people, is whether they're prepared to learn from young people. Because for me, that's the iPad 5. I'm the iPad 3.
Yeah.
So what am I going to teach them? I mean, I don't buy that. I don't buy culture. I don't buy heritage. I don't buy tradition. I think it's all rubbish. And there's a simple scientific reason for that, is as we learn more about the world, we realize how wrong we've been in the past. And that information was developed by people who were afraid and didn't know. So because they didn't know, they made up their most passionate ideas. But it evolves. What's interesting is one of my business partners is a lady's got a doctorate in design thinking, and she's a very charismatic Christian. And we met when I was actually lecturing years ago. I did a lecture at the Cape Town, the Graduate School of Business. She was an MBA candidate, and she hated me. And I didn't know this at the time because we didn't talk. But she sat at the back of the class and she hated me. and then throughout the course of the lecture, she decided to write down what I was saying, and then became interested in what I was talking about. And when we teach together now, she often she's my senior because she's got a doctorate, but we're very good friends. And she tells the story, and she says that even though we are friends and we partners in business and whatever. I hated John when I first saw him. I was so outraged that a business school where I was paying money would allow the scumbag to come and, teach us. And then as he was talking, I realized that I was the problem. It was my own belief system that was limiting my ability to actually take something of use.
Wow.
And then she says that, and then when I come up, I go, and I just want you to know that as a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, when I hear stories like this, I find such value in the Christian belief framework because of what it's done for my friend. So it's not just her that changed, but I also changed my approach to her belief system, because it's a corollary. It's not one way, and that's how we teach. So it's crazy. It's just like black lady doctor, and then this short white atheist scumbag, and we literally love each other, and we do these classes, and it's a living example of how dissonance is a really fantastic teaching mechanism.
Has she come to realize that you don't have cloven hooves and a pitchfork, John?
She has, but she still thinks my art collection is disturbing.
John, where to for John from here, aside from eventually finishing the MBA and going on to do PhD or Masters and then PhD?
It's a good question. I have some interesting things that have happened in my life in the last week that might change my plans a little bit. It's just some old business sort of mess that I'm going to have to clean up. So those will have a say in my next sort of 2 or 3 years, I think, if I look at them accurately. So I really don't know, but whatever happens, I would like to keep teaching very much. I'm doing a lot of public speaking now compared to before on these topics, and I have to try and get people to understand that I'm not going to arrive and do jokes. So there's a lot of that
serious
going on.
Work now.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are some laughs in the lectures and in the classroom. It's funny. My daughter is studying psychology, French, philosophy, and history. And English at Stellenbosch, and so when I go and visit her, I have a business sponsor who's in Stellenbosch. So I fly in. I would go and visit them and do whatever I had to do, and then go and meet her, go to a lecture, and then buy her lunch or dinner, and then go home. So I ended up in a philosophy class and a history class with her the last few times I went. It's really funny, like the dad with the tattoos. I look like the student, really. And
you probably got, because I know what your collection looks like, because your tattoo artist and mine happen to be the same fellow. And people freak because I don't, and I'm not casting any aspersions now, but your tattoos are readily visible. Mine aren't. And when I was in corporate and people didn't know that I had, and then they'd notice one. And they go, really? You have tattoos? Oh, yes.
Well, this is my part of my thing. So my most recent ones are on my neck. This big one on my neck and my chest. But most recently, I've decided that I'll be going. I'm doing my other hand as soon as we're out of lockdown.
Okay.
But this is my ape that won. This is what my talks are all about now. We are the ape that won.
Okay.
And we have terrible power. I call it Ape X.
Because I see somebody said, that we were talking about space right at the beginning of our chat, and Mars and that type of thing. And somebody said the guys that went up with Dragon X are going to be there for somewhere between 3 and 6 months, which gives us all down here time to hire gorilla suits and learn how to ride horses.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I'm only part of that team. That's very funny. I like that.
John, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It really and truly has. Thank you so much for giving of your time. And I wish you all the very, very best with your future endeavors. I really and truly do.
Thank you, sir. And when all this is over, let's have a cup of coffee at some point.
I think we definitely have to. My name is David Batsoff, and I've been in conversation with John Vlismas. John, once again, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.